We are here with one of our great unsung heroes. It's Dr. Shariff Abdullah, and many of you have seen him previously on our shows. He's a thought leader focused on transforming our society by shifting consciousness while still creating sustainable, inclusive, empowered, and value-driven individuals and organizations. He works with individuals, corporations, and I have tremendous respect for this gentleman, and I'm really grateful that you're with us. And I'm also excited to hear about your new book, Practicing Wisdom. Please do kind of tell us about the new book and bring us up to date with what you're doing.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I always enjoy talking with you and with your tribe. I wrote Practicing Wisdom in order to satisfy an itch that I've had. And this itch has been with me since before I was a teenager. I've always been spiritually driven. And back in those days, being spiritually driven meant you got to go to church. And what I was looking for, what my heart was looking for, wasn't there. And I searched around with a lot of different faith traditions, a lot of different religions, and I kept running into the same issues, that we were talking about spirituality, we're talking about wisdom, but we weren't practicing it. We were practicing something else. We were practicing expediency. We were practicing, how do I make money? We're practicing, how do I run away from my fears? And I thought then, and I think now, that we need to actually learn how to practice what we've been talking about, what our wisdom teachers have been trying to teach us for the past, let's say 3,000 years or so. And so what I was doing was collecting different pieces of wisdom that were speaking to me, speaking to what was going on in my heart. And I was sharing them with people, and they were getting something out of it. And I just decided to put it all in one book, Practicing Wisdom. And it's actually a fairly interesting layout to it. I spend some time actually looking at a piece of wisdom. And I'm looking right now at something that Lao Tzu said. Through return to simple living comes control of desires. In control of desires, stillness is attained. In stillness, the world is restored. So that's the Lao Tzu quote, and it's kind of like right there. But what the hell does that mean? And what does it mean to me? And how do I actually practice that in the crazy world we've got right now? So after that come what I call wisdom reflections. And that is, when I read that, what did it mean to me? What would I recommend to someone who's hearing something like that? What are the challenges of trying to apply something like that in today's living? So it's not just like a book of wise sayings. There's tons and tons of them around. Pick one up and start reading it, and then throw it back on your bookshelf and do something else, because it doesn't tell you how to do that in the world. Or get Practicing Wisdom and actually start the process of applying what this wisdom is about, applying it in your life, and then encouraging others to start practicing this and applying it in their lives.
Beautiful. And I just got my copy of the book, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go through and take a look. And I appreciate that, because it's true. We have to walk our talk. And that's something I respect about you very much, is you are a new thought leader that walks the talk. Can you give us one example? Pick one of your favorite pieces from the book, or maybe one of your, I know it's like asking a mother which of her children she likes the most.
Oh yeah, that I'm not, yeah, and I got what, something like 70 children here.
Oh, well, we'll just pick one.
Yeah.
We won't say it's your favorite. We'll just say it's the one that happened to get
Right.
selected.
Okay. The book opened to this page. Let's do that.
Okay.
So this is actually a quote that's early on in the book, um, from Sri Ramana Maharshi. And he said, the boat moves in the river, but water should never enter it. Though one lives in the world should not occupy one's mind. Now, one of the things that I think just from the very beginning, when you look at how we live in the world occupies our minds 24/7. We don't, we rarely spend the time to look at our own mind, as opposed to look at all the other, bright objects that we go around chasing. The next video of the dancing kittens, the next email or Instagram that you got, the constant roar of the irrelevant. And I say in the wisdom reflections, I said, for some of us, it looks like our boats are made out of water. We don't float anywhere. We're submerged in that kind of living. So this was a statement out of Hinduism, but Jesus's statement about being in the world but not of it is saying exactly the same thing. Now, this is an aside, but one of the things that you learn when you start gleaning wisdom traditions from wisdom statements from all of the different traditions, they're all saying the same thing. And that makes it very convenient if you choose to ignore them. You don't have to come up with different things, different reasons for ignoring them. I go on to talk about balance. We talk about having 5 senses, but we have a lot more than that. And for those of us who have ever taught a child how to ride a bicycle, you know that you don't teach them how to ride the bike. What you're teaching them is how to identify their sense of balance. As soon as they get that, boom, they're taking off down the street. We have that once we get our sense of balance in terms of the bicycle, you can go on to other things. But how do we have a sense of balance in this world? Okay, as we're walking through the world, and as like people, or worse than that, internet objects are pulling you in this direction and pulling you in that direction. The floor starts feeling spongy. You don't know which way to go, etc. So remembering that although we're living in the world, we shouldn't have it occupying our mind. We should be occupying our own mind, our own hearts. The key isn't now there, as you know, there are a lot of different religions of renunciates. I reject the entire world. I'm not going to be part of the world. And I don't believe our wisdom traditions are teaching us that. It's teaching us not to be attached to the world. So I have friends who will spend 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours at a time on Facebook. Just, the Facebook page doesn't have a bottom. You just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And at the end of it, your back will hurt, your eyes will hurt, your scrolling finger will hurt, and you haven't gained anything from it. Okay. The stuff that's still clogging up your heart. It's still clogging it. And so one of the things that I highly recommend is you go on a Facebook diet. Before you go online, you get a timer, and everybody's device has a timer on it. And you set a timer for how long you're going to be on it. And once you get to that time, turn it off. Now, my time is somewhere around 10 minutes. After, so it's not like I don't use Facebook. I do for about 10 minutes. And then I shut it off and I do something else. And people ask me, how do you have the time to write so many books, to do so much speaking, to actually do so much thinking? And the answer is, I manage myself and I don't allow anyone else to manage me. Okay. And so I don't care if you set your timer for 2 hours, but that's your choice, not the algorithm throwing different things in front of your eyes. And the same thing is true with news. I give news, I pay attention to what's going on in the news. I give it appropriate amounts of my attention, which is somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And then after that, I do something else. My television watching is somewhere around 0 per week. Now, I will watch television when someone says, Sharif, this is very interesting. It's worth your time and it's worth your attention to pay attention to this. Someone that I know, someone that's a human being, and somebody that's not paid to tell me that. And for most situations, that turns out to be about 0 hours per week. And that gives me lots and lots of time to do things like read a book, to other things like write a book, and to actually connect with other human beings and stop pretending that I'm connecting to another human being, because we're all doing tweets and whatever on various social devices. This is something that actually happened to me. I had a friend who committed suicide, and everyone that she knew online, they were saying she must have been killed, or maybe she's been captured or kidnapped or something, because I can't believe that she could have ever taken her life. And when I heard people saying that, it's like, you never spent 10 minutes with her, because all you had to do is spend 10 minutes with her and you would know that she was suicidal. So we think we know the other. We think we know that person. But actually, we think that the being that we're talking to on Facebook is actually a person. And so instead of that, what happens when we meet someone face to face? We meet them heart to heart. We meet them in such a way that we actually can know them. We can know their secret fears. We can know their manifest joy. You can't get that on Facebook. It appears that you can. And I said, so yeah, believe me, actually, as I'm scrolling through, I'm seeing all the, love signs, and people are holding their heads up and doing all the other stuff. But it's not the kind of, I was about to say it's not real, but it's not the kind of reality that can feed you. Okay. This is, as you know, I spent a lot of time in lots of different places in the world. And when I was in Sri Lanka, and I've been to a number of weddings in Sri Lanka, and the bakers will make part of the wedding cake out of styrofoam because it melts so quickly. I mean, under the tropical heat. So, and nobody eats wedding cake anyway. So, so they'll make the cake, the lower layers out of styrofoam, and then they use mashed potatoes as for the icing. Okay, now because it stands up better than sugar in the hot sun. Now that's fine if all you're going to do is look at it. But we're trying to eat the styrofoam cake. We're thinking that it's feeding us, and it's not. And Scott, I know I'm kind of ranting here, but one of the things that that strikes me is people saying, "Well, if I'm not looking at Facebook constantly, if I'm not watching TV, if I'm not on Instagram constantly, I feel lonely." And I tell them that's exactly what you should feel. You're trying to mask something that's an honest, authentic feeling that's in your heart. When you're feeling lonely and you want to do something about it, okay, turning on Facebook just means that you're lonely and your mouth is full of styrofoam. What we have to do is say, yes, I'm lonely, and it's okay to be that. It's okay to feel that. I know that this too shall pass. I don't think that's a quote that's in Practicing Wisdom, but yeah, this is something that's going to pass. It's okay to feel it, and once I honestly feel it, when it does pass, I then know, oh, this is an authentic feeling from an authentic human being. Now I want to experience that. So the bottom line is this is training in how to be a human being. And where else are you going to get it from?
I have to admit the irony that the majority of people watching this video will be watching it on Facebook.
Ta-da! Again, I didn't say don't do it. Okay, I didn't say, I think your program's like 3 hours or something like that. Set your timer for 3 hours and 10 minutes. Okay,
Right,
and then you it's at that point you become not a passive consumer, but you become a real, authentic human being. And it's interesting that almost all of the wisdom teachers have been teaching us how to become an authentic human being, a true human being, as opposed to what you become when you swallow all the styrofoam that's floating around in the world, okay? Where we don't even know what will feed you. I was asking a group of people just the other day, this guy was in the gym and he had a bag of Cheetos and he was eating the Cheetos in the gym. And it's like, I said, what is that made out of? I said, what? I said, there's not a Cheeto tree. What is it? And he just kind of shrugs. And it's like, I said, and if it kills you, whose responsibility is that? Is that the people who put all that stuff together in a bag and put salt on it and made it tasty for you? Or is it your fault because you're not paying attention? We have to learn in all aspects of our lives to pay attention. And paying attention doesn't mean blaming somebody else. It doesn't mean not taking responsibility for your own actions. It means becoming an authentic human being, which means that we've got the 5 major senses, but we've got an awful lot more than that. And once we start looking at that, once we start doing that, we can start seeing a whole other world that's in front of us.
Beautiful. Yeah, and that's, it's what the planet needs to do, but of course, each of us as individuals also need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
what would you say when people ask you about, our relationship to the climate crisis? I mean, obviously we're driving cars, you're getting on an airplane tomorrow. At what level do you personally practice responsibility for climate change?
Right.
And how do you, the other question is, how do you manage either any guilt you might have, or when people ask you about the guilt they have about contributing to the end of so many species and all this happening?
I'll try to do this in a couple of minutes. We need to understand what the problem is. And for most of us, even in our environmental issues, in our social justice issues, in our economic issues, we don't understand the problem, okay? The problem is not carbon in the atmosphere. The problem is the consciousness that puts it there in the first place. If I'm trying to do something about the carbon in the atmosphere or the amount of plastic in the ocean, and I haven't changed the consciousness that puts the plastic in the ocean in the first place, that puts the carbon in the atmosphere in the first place, I can take all sorts of actions to reduce my footprint. But at the bottom line, I'm still contributing to the problem in some other way.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've got is one problem with about 50 or 60 presenting symptoms.
Mm.
So we don't have an environmental problem over here and a racial problem over here and a gender problem over here and an economic problem over here. We have one problem and it needs one solution. It requires one solution. And that is for us, for humanity, to change how we think. And that will lead to changing how we behave. Okay, so let's go back 150 years or so, maybe 200 years or so. And we're on a train going cross country. And at a given point in time, when someone spots a buffalo herd that's crossing the train tracks, everybody gets their gun and from the moving train, see how many buffaloes you can shoot at that time. Now, that consciousness hasn't gone anywhere. We're not shooting buffaloes from a train anymore, but that consciousness is now the CEO of an airline saying, "Oh yeah, we got all this carbon, dump it in the atmosphere." Atmosphere will just will take all of it, and that consciousness is right here in my heart. Whenever I start my car and I dump carbon in the atmosphere. Now, I do have a car. I do put the carbon in the atmosphere, but my consciousness is change this system and change it right now. And but not from a I'm holier than thou or I'm better than you are, because I recognize that I myself am doing this. All of us are doing this. Once I let go of that, I can approach the earth with compassion. I can approach the earth and recognize I don't want to create this mess. There has to be another way of doing it together with people in the airlines, with the people who do the other things. We can find the solution together. As long as I'm blaming somebody else, as long as I got my finger pointed at someone else, I am not looking at my own behavior. As long as I have a theory that blames someone else, I'm not looking at my own behavior, and I'm not looking at how I and all of us eyes can make that change. So our challenge is, how are we actually going to make the change, and how are we going to make the change real? Okay. When in my books, especially in Creating a World That Works for All, I talk about what it takes to create a world that works for all living beings. Now, you can't do that. That creating a world that works for all is impossible when your primary goal is, I need to make more money. If money is your goal, you're going to wind up with a world that looks an awful lot like this one. So your goal has to be something else. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against money. It's very useful from time to time. However, I am against this blind thinking that makes money paramount, where I will accumulate more money than I can spend in a lifetime, in 10 lifetimes, in 1,000 lifetimes. I can't, there's no way for someone like a Bezos or someone like an Elon Musk to ever spend their money, okay? What we have to do is look at the ways in which I can practice enoughness, the ways in which I can practice community, especially in communities. The ultimate diversity issue is people who think and feel different from you do. You know, it isn't skin color, it isn't gender. It's how do we make our peace and make our community with beings who are not even human beings? How do we create the community of all? I think it's what all of our wisdom teachers have been asking us to do. I think it's our destiny that we do this. But I don't think that we're going to do that as long as I'm pointing my finger at that person over there saying they have to change. Both the left and the right have made an industry out of pointing fingers in other directions, and both need to stop. Both need to recognize that we're living on one planet, and as long as you're pointing fingers, you're not engaged in the solution. And it's time for us to get engaged.
Shariff, I'm going to be showing other segments from your previous conversations, but I definitely want to direct people to the commonway.org website, commonway.org, and click on shop, and there is where we can get the book. And I want to encourage everyone to get this beautiful, beautiful book. I'm grateful to have it. And thank you so much for just your continued eloquence, your wisdom, and giving us tools for practicing wisdom. And I'm going to do the little game of every day, turning to just seeing what page pops out and make that my practical wisdom tool for the day.
Excellent. And we're going to do one more thing to try to sweeten the deal a little bit more for people who are maybe sitting on the fence. I'll get you a coupon link, and the coupon will be for those just for this weekend, for those who are watching your program, and it will be for free shipping. That way, so it'll just be just like you're buying it directly from me.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
But you'll have to do that before Sunday night. So let's get to it.
Okay.
Link.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll stop the recording before that, and I'll add that and describe that to people afterwards. Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording.